For this function, now this is a linear function, right? Because the exponent is a 1, so if we graph this, it would be a straight line. So for this straight line, this function, we want to simplify what is called the difference quotient. This is called the difference quotient, right? You have a difference and a quotient. Now this expression here comes up in calculus, and it helps us find the instantaneous rate of change, not an average rate of change. So let's see what we can do with this. So here's our function. I'll just write it here so I have it, so I can write it and get a feel for it. It is 6x minus 4, and what I want to do is compute this. F of x plus h minus f of x itself, and then don't want to divide the whole thing by h. Now here's a hint. You'll know if you're doing this correctly if at the end all the h's drop out. There should be no more h's. Now what do we do with this f of x plus h? Well, look, just to get an idea, if you already know, that's great, but if I was to tell you to do this, what if you put a 5 in here? Now, we have an x plus h, but what if it was a 5? What would you do with that 5? Wouldn't you put the 5 right back in here? You replace this x with 5, so you replace all the x's with 5. So it would look like this. It would be 6 times 5 minus 4. But we don't have a 5. Instead of a 5, we have x plus h. So we're going to put the x plus h right into here. So let's get rid of this and start computing the f of x plus h, right? So I'm going to do this one right here. Put the x plus h right there, all right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and put it right here. Here's what it'll look like. This is all equal to 6. Now instead of x, that's a placeholder for x plus h. And then we have the minus 4, all right? So that is the f of x plus h, right? I just put the x plus h there. Then I've got the minus sign, all right? So let's put this minus sign. I'm going to take that minus sign and put it right here. Minus what? Well, minus f of x itself. Now here's f of x, right? F of x is 6x minus 4. So I want to subtract it. So use parentheses to make sure you get all of it. Minus the quantity, 6x minus 4. And then divide the whole thing by h. Now let's simplify. We'll use the distributive property. So I'm going to take the 6 through and then the negative sign through. So here's what we will get. We'll get 6x plus 6h and then the minus 4. Right, that minus 4 right from there. Then take the negative sign through. We'll get minus 6x, and then over here, right, we will get plus 4, and the whole thing's over h. Oh, now look what happens in the top here. The 6x minus 6x goes out. Minus 4 plus 4 goes out, so we are left with just that 6h over h. So we have 6h over h, and as long as h is not equal to 0, which we're assuming it's not, these h's are going to cancel, and we're just left with 6. So let's just say what we have here. So for this function here, this difference quotient is 6. Now for this quadratic function, right, quadratic because it's squared, this would be a parabola if we graphed it. So for this function right here, let's construct and simplify the difference quotient. So let's start by evaluating the function at x plus h. Now what I'm going to do is, this is, back up here in the function, this x is a placeholder. This side tells us what to do with it. So it says whatever you put in, you do this to it. So you square it, then you add 3. Now what's going in is x plus h. So I'm going to square that. Then I'm going to add 3, so it's going to look like this. And that x is a placeholder, so it's holding the place for x plus h, square it, then add 3. Now I've got a minus, all right? So here's the minus. I'll put the minus right here, minus. Now minus what? F of x. Well, here's f of x. F of x is this. 2 terms, so use parentheses to capture both of them. So minus parentheses, x squared plus 3, close, and then the whole thing's divided by h. Now, you know, the way I wrote this, this is, that is a 3. It didn't look like it, but it is. Now, let's square this. All right, so we're squaring a binomial. Now, if you know the rule for that, there's a shortcut rule, right? It says x plus h squared is going to be, well, here's not the shortcut. I'll just do the whole thing. That's what it means. All right, then, first and first, x squared, outer product. Now, this says x times h. I'm going to write it hx. xh, hx, same thing, plus another hx, and then plus h squared. Or here's what you do. You square the first. All right, so square the first. Okay, over here, square the first. Multiply the two together, xh. But you double it because there's 2 of them there. So plus 2hx, and then you square the last. All right, so that's what goes here. X squared plus 2hx plus h squared, then the plus 3, and now take the minus sign through. Minus x squared minus 3 all over h. Now look what happens here. X squared goes out. And the 3 minus 3 goes out. So everything that's left has an h in it. And that's going to eventually cancel. So I'll do it right up here to the right. So I'll have 2hx plus h squared all over h. Now you notice the top 2 terms have an h common, so I'll factor that out. And what's left? If you take out an h, what's left? Just remove it. A 2x plus, now h squared is really hh. Take away an h, you're left with one of them, all over h. And the h's will cancel because we're assuming that x is not equal to 0. H is not equal to 0. So we're left with 2x plus h. I think this problem is like the last two, but worded differently. Here's what it says. This expression right here, h not equal to 0, this is called a difference quotient, right? Difference and a quotient. Now, what we're going to do is find and simplify this difference quotient for this quadratic function. So I'm going to write the function f of x equals, all right, 3x squared plus 9x plus 7, and I want to construct and simplify this difference quotient. F of x plus h, and then subtract f of x itself, divide the whole thing by h. All right, so let's start here with this x plus h. What are we going to do with this? We're going to put it into f. Here's f. So you can see that this x has been replaced with x plus h. So replace all the x's, both of those with x plus h. So this x here is just a placeholder and is holding the place for x plus h. So I'll put an x plus h here and an x plus h here. It looks like this. There's 3, and instead of the x, I'll write the x plus h squared plus 9. Instead of the x, I'll put in the x plus h, and then plus 7. All right, now that is this. I've just computed f of x plus h. I put the x plus h here and here, right there, and there's the plus 7. Now I've got that minus sign. All right, so take this minus sign, put it right here. Okay, so minus, now minus what? Minus f of x. Well, here's f of x, right? It says f of x is this, 3 terms. So make sure you include all 3. Put them in parentheses. So all of these. Here's f of x, 3x squared plus 9x plus 7. Okay, and then the whole thing is to be divided by h. Now, the first thing we're going to do is, right, by the order of operations, we got a multiplication and a power. Do the power first. So we're going to square this. Now, I'm going to use the shortcut method for doing it. I'll just talk my way through it. 3 times. Now, when you square 2 terms, you square the first, multiply the 2 together. So multiply them together. xh or hx, it doesn't matter. hx, but you double it. So you squared the first, I got that. Multiply them together, hx, double it. So I get double hx. And then square the last. So plus h squared. Now, if you don't see that, what you can do is write x plus h times x plus h, multiply it all out, and then combine terms. All right, so I've got that part. Now, let's do this one right here. 9, let's multiply through by the 9, so we'll get plus 9x plus 9h, and then I got a 7, plus 7. Now, take that minus sign through all those terms. So I'll get minus 3x squared, minus 9x, minus 7, whole thing's divided by h. Now, on the top, I see I can distribute that 3. So multiply all 3 of those terms by that 3. We will get 3x squared plus, and then what? 3 times 2 is 6hx. And then 3 times h squared is 3h squared. All right, and then I still have the rest of this. I got the plus 9x plus 9h plus 7 minus 3x squared minus 9x minus 7 all over h. Now, a lot of this is going to cancel out. Look at this. 3x squared minus 3x squared goes out. Positive 9x minus 9x goes out. And plus 7 minus 7 goes out. In fact, you're probably doing this right if everything on the top that does not have an h in it cancels. So the only things left have an h in them. And here's what we have. I've got this one, and this one. Let's write them. Here's what's left. I've got 6hx plus 3h squared plus 9h. All right, did I get them? 6hx right there, 3h squared right there, and 9h. I got it. And then the whole thing is divided by h. Now notice on top, all 3 of these terms, this one, and this one, have an h in them. Right? I can't combine them. They're not alike. But I can remove an h, so factor an h out. So the plan is now to factor out an h. So just remove an h. So if I take out an h from the first one, what's left is 6x plus, now an h squared is really what? 3hh. If you take an h out, there's a 3h left. And then plus take an h out of that 9h, you're left with a 9 all over h. And they're telling us h is not 0, so I can cancel. So here's what we're left with. 6x plus 3h plus 9.